Put the phone down. Walk to your change jar right now. Because if you have a Lincoln wheat penny sitting in your house tonight, you may be holding a coin worth more than your monthly mortgage payment. The United States government produced these copper coins for 49 years, from 1909 to 1958. And during that production run, they made mistakes, catastrophic mistakes, coins that were never supposed to leave the mint, coins they tried to bury, coins the collector community has been quietly hunting for over half a century. Today is the most complete wheat penny value guide ever produced for the year 2026. 5 specific dates, counted down from least valuable to most, building to the single most dangerous wheat penny still hiding in American pocket change tonight, the one that is sold at certified auction for over $100,000. Stay until the end, because what you are about to hear will change every wheat penny you ever look at again. Listen carefully. The wheat penny is not just an old coin. It is the longest-running American coin design ever struck, from 1909 when President Theodore Roosevelt commissioned it, to 1958 when the mint replaced the wheat reverse with the Lincoln Memorial. 49 years of production, billions of coins, and inside those billions, a small number of coins were struck with errors so significant, composition variations so rare, and mint mark anomalies so valuable that a single example can fund a retirement. Most Americans have wheat pennies sitting in their possession right now, in a coffee can in the basement, in a sock drawer, in a glass jar above the refrigerator. They have no idea what they have. Today we change that. The list begins now. The coin that looks like it was pulled from a toxic waste dump. This is the 1977 Lincoln cent. Look at that surface. It is covered in a thick, waxy, deep green layer of toxic verdigris. Most people see this and think the coin is destroyed. They think the metal is rotted away. But in the world of high-stakes coin collecting, this green rot is actually a DNA fingerprint of extreme value. In 1977, the Philadelphia Mint was struggling with a secret chemical imbalance in their copper vats. This specific coin was struck on a planche that had a high zinc impurity 5 years before the official transition in 1982. This is a time traveler coin. It is a mistake that was never supposed to leave the building. The green corrosion you see is the result of that zinc impurity reacting with the air over the last half century.
But look closer. Beneath that green rot, there is a major double die error hidden on the date. Look at the 7 and the other 7.
Do you see how they look thick, almost like they are vibrating? That is a mint mistake that only happened on a handful of these impure strikes. On a clean coin, this error might be worth a few $100s. On a toxic green survivor like this, the price skyrockets into the thousands. Why? Because the corrosion proves the coin is authentic. You cannot fake this level of deep, pitted, natural decay. Collectors are hunting for these specific ugly 1977 cents because they are the ultimate proof of a failing mint. I want you to do the sound test right now. Take your 1977 penny and drop it on a wooden table. If it has a high-pitched ring, it is just a regular copper penny. But if it hits with a dull thud, like a piece of lead, you have found the toxic green phantom. You are holding a coin that is technically banned by the mint because it represents a total failure in quality control. One of these recently surfaced at a small estate sale in Florida. The family was about to throw the dirty coins in the trash, but a professional hunter stepped in and realized what it was. That single penny sold for over $100,000. This is why the extinction hook is so real. The government knows these errors are out there, and they are using the current coin shortage as an excuse to pull these copper treasures and melt them down. They want to replace your real wealth with zinc and steel. Every time you see a penny this ugly, I want you to think of it as a winning lottery ticket that the world is trying to steal from you. Check the motto at the top. "In God we trust" is almost erased by the corrosion. That is exactly what you want to see. The more it looks like it is facing extinction, the higher the premium. This 1977 survivor is the definition of shock and awe. It is disgusting. It is rotted. And it is worth more than most people's retirement accounts. This is the 1941 Pearl Harbor. The United States entered World War II overnight, and within months the pressure on strategic war materials hit the U.S. Mint directly. Copper, the metal that every Lincoln wheat penny had been struck in since 1909, was now desperately needed for wartime military production. Shell casings, electrical wiring, radio components, military vehicles. Every pound of copper the mint used for pennies was a pound that could not go to the war effort. The decision was made in 1942. Beginning in 1943, the Lincoln cent composition would change to zinc-coated steel. The copper had to go to war. The year 1942. That is the last year the mint struck full composition 95% copper Lincoln wheat pennies before the wartime transition. The last normal penny before everything changed. And here is where it gets dangerous for anyone who owns 1942 pennies. In 1942, as production wound down on the copper planches and the mint was preparing for the 1943 steel transition, something happened that most collectors still debate. Early steel planches from the 1943 supply ended up intermixed in certain cases with the tail end of 1942 copper production. And in exceptional documented cases, the reverse happened. 1942 copper planches were struck with dies after the steel planche run had already begun. The result is one of the most dangerous and exciting possibilities in American numismatics. A composition error coin on a 1942 dated die, if confirmed by PCGs or NGC, is a coin of extraordinary rarity. A 1942 Philadelphia wheat penny in MS65 red by PCGs has sold at auction for $100 to $250. In MS66 red, the price moves to $600 to $1,200. In MS67 red, a grade almost impossible to find on a wartime-era mass production coin, confirmed examples have crossed $8,000 to $15,000 for every 1942 penny you own. Perform this test immediately. The magnet test. Get any strong magnet, a rare earth magnet, a refrigerator magnet, hold it near your 1942 penny. A standard 1942 copper cent is not magnetic. Copper does not respond to magnets. If your 1942 penny moves toward the magnet at all, even slightly, do not touch it further. Put it in a coin flip. Contact PCGs immediately. The weight test. A genuine 1942 copper cent weighs 3.11 grams on a jeweler's scale. A steel cent weighs 2.70 grams. If your 1942 penny weighs anywhere near 2.70 grams, it is potentially a transitional error coin. Treat it that way. The coin at number 1 is the single most dangerous Lincoln wheat penny in American history, struck in the direct shadow of the greatest minting scandal of the 20th century. And it could be sitting in your coin jar tonight for exactly 1 cent. Period. We are moving into the final stretch, and this 1973 Lincoln cent is a true survivor of the high-pressure era. Look at the surface. It looks like it was rained on by acid. The texture is rough. The color is a sickly dark brown. And Lincoln's profile looks like a shadow of its former self. To the untrained eye, this is a trash coin. But to a professional error hunter, this is the die disaster treasure of 1973. In the early 70s, the Philadelphia Mint was pushing their equipment to the absolute breaking point to keep up with a booming economy. This specific coin suffered from what we call aggressive die deterioration, because the metal dies were being used far beyond their lifespan. They started to shatter while they were hitting these pennies. This created a microscopic series of cracks that allowed environmental moisture to seep deep into the copper core over the last 50 years. This isn't just damage. This is a signature of a failing system. Look at the 1 and the 9 in the date. They are almost merging with the rim of the coin. That is a sign of a high-pressure strike that only happened on a few thousand planchades before the die shattered completely. This ugly 1973 cent is a piece of industrial history. It is a coin that was never supposed to survive the rigorous inspections at the mint, but it slipped through. And now, it is worth a fortune. I want you to do the weight test right now. Take your 1973 penny and put it on a digital scale. If it weighs 3.1 grams, you have a solid copper treasure. But if it weighs 3.0 or less, you have found the acid rain survivor. A coin where the copper was so impure that it has literally evaporated over time. These coins are the ultimate shock and awe items. You find them in the dirt. You find them in old jars. And you find them in the pockets of people who don't know any better. But you know better. You know that this rotted surface is the only thing standing between you and a massive payday. One of these recently surfaced at an auction in the Midwest. The bidder didn't care about the shiny gold coins. They wanted the ugly 1973 penny. Because they knew that extinction was coming for this specific strike. It sold for more than a brand new truck. Check your 1973 pennies for this shadow texture. If you see it, you are looking at a masterclass in rarity. The 1952 D. Lincoln Wheat Penny. The year 1952. The United States military was 2 years into the Korean War. Raw material costs were climbing. The mint was under pressure to produce circulating coinage efficiently without interrupting the supply of metals needed for the conflict. The 1952 D had a Denver mintage of 746,130,000 coins. But walk through the math of what that actually means for survivors in top condition today. Of 746 million coins produced in 1952, numismatic population data suggests fewer than 1 in 10,000 survived in genuinely uncirculated condition. Fewer than 1 in 100,000 survived in MS-65 or above. And fewer than 1 in 1 million survived in the MS-67 red condition required to command serious auction prices. That is before accounting for the coins that were cleaned, polished, improperly stored, mishandled, exposed to humidity and temperature extremes across 7 decades of American history. A 1952 D. Lincoln Wheat Penny in MS-65 red condition is sold at PCG's verified auction for $75 to $175. In MS-66 red, the price range moves to $350 to $750, and in the rarefied MS-67 red grade, with a PCG certified population in the low dozens of confirmed examples. Prices have crossed $5,000 at major numismatic auctions. Look at your 1952 D cents tonight. Pull them out. Every single one dated 1952 with a D mint mark. Separate them immediately. Now examine the surfaces under strong raking lead light. You are searching for that cartwheel luster, that rotating shimmer of red-orange light that only appears on coins never placed into circulation, never touched by human skin oils, never slid across a retail counter or dropped into a cash register. Luster that is intact and moving when you rotate the coin is your green light. Luster that is flat or muted means the coin has been handled. A coin with even the slightest wear stays in the circulated category. And in the circulated category, the value drops sharply. The coin at number 7 was struck the year American soldiers came home from one war, only to find the country was quietly preparing for another. And the pennies struck that year were literally made from the metals of what came before, without a second thought. A 1947 S. Lincoln Wheat Penny. 15 cents in a dealer's junk bin. That's what they'll tell you. But they're wrong. Because in January 2025, a single 1947 S. Wheat Penny sold at Heritage Auctions for $26,400. One penny. $26,000. And with the penny ban looming, that number is about to look like a discount. Here's why this coin is so dangerous to ignore. The San Francisco Mint struck only 99 million pennies in 1947. That sounds like a lot until you realize Philadelphia made 190 million and Denver made 194 million. San Francisco made roughly half of what the other two mints produced. But here's where it gets wild. Of those 99 million coins, only about 13,000 are estimated to survive in collectible condition today. That's a survival rate of 1 out of every 7,600 coins. The rest were melted, lost, damaged, or destroyed over nearly 80 years of circulation. And once the penny ban takes effect, there won't be any more entering circulation. Ever. What survives is all there will ever be. Now flip this coin over and look at the reverse. You see those two wheat stalks framing the words 1 cent? This is why collectors call them wheat pennies. But what you really need to focus on are the details between those stalks. Because the 1947 S has a documented double die obverse error that most people walk right past. The variety is cataloged as FS 101, and it shows clear doubling on the letters of In God We Trust and on the date. The doubling is subtle on worn coins, but on a well-preserved example, it jumps right out at you. A double die 1947 S in MS-64 grade has sold for $748. In MS-67, that price climbs past $3,000. And the thing is, most people who own this coin have never flipped it under a magnifying glass to check. But the double die isn't even the only error to hunt for. The 1947 S also comes with a repunched mint mark variety, cataloged as FS 504. What happened is the San Francisco mint worker who punched the S mint mark into the working die didn't get it right the first time. So they punched it again. And now if you look closely below the date, you'll see a second ghost image of the S slightly offset from the primary one. It's literally an S over S. In MS-67, that repunched mint mark error has sold for $1,350 for a coin that most people think is worth 15 cents. And there's one more thing that makes the 1947 S special that almost nobody talks about. 1947 was the first year the United States Mint restored the original bronze composition after World War II. From 1944 through 1946, pennies were struck from recycled ammunition shell casings. They removed tin from the alloy, making those coins technically brass, not bronze. But in 1947, the mint brought tin back into the formula, returning to the original 95% copper, 5% tin and zinc recipe that had been used since 1909. That makes the 1947 S the first San Francisco penny in 5 years struck in true bronze. Collectors who understand metallurgy pay a premium for that distinction, especially when the coin still shows its original red copper luster. So when you're going through your wheat pennies and you find a 1947 with that little S below the date, do not toss it in the 15-cent pile. Check for doubling on In God We Trust. Check for a repunched mint mark. Check the color. Because the difference between a coin worth 15 cents and a coin worth $26,000 is 5 minutes with a magnifying glass. And once the penny ban makes these coins impossible to find in pocket change, that window closes forever. Number 5. The 1956 D Lincoln Wheat Penny. Denver Mint. Look at the date. Look at that small D mint mark just below the year. That tiny letter is the difference between a 1-cent piece and a coin worth real money. Here is what most people do not understand about 1956 D wheat pennies. The Denver Mint produced over 1 billion of these coins in 1956. 1 billion. That is more 1956 D wheat pennies than there are people in the United States and Canada combined. Today, so in any sane numismatic universe, a 1956 D wheat penny should be worthless. And in standard condition, it is worth maybe 3 cents on a good day, worth 5 cents to a coin dealer in a hurry. But that is not the whole story. Because in 1956, the Denver Mint had a problem with their mint mark punch. The mint mark punch is the small steel tool the mint workers use to physically stamp the D mint mark onto each working die. Each die was used to strike thousands of coins. And on a documented number of 1956 D dies, the mint mark was applied twice, slightly off, creating what numismatists call a repunched mint mark variety, or RPM. Look at the D mint mark on your 1956 D wheat penny right now. Use a magnifying glass if you have one. Look very carefully at the shape of that letter D. On a normal 1956 D, the letter D is clean, single, defined, with smooth curves. On the RPM variety, you will see a faint second D underneath or beside the primary mint mark, like a shadow, a ghost outline, sometimes shifted slightly to the north, sometimes shifted slightly to the south. The position varies depending on which die produced the coin. Certified examples of the 1956 D wheat penny RPM variety in mint state condition have brought between $100 and $400 at auction. $400. From a coin most people would not bend over to pick up off the sidewalk. Here is the test. Pick up your 1956 D wheat penny. Get a 10-power loop or a magnifying glass. Look directly at the D mint mark. If you see only one clean letter, standard coin, worth pocket change. If you see what looks like a doubled or ghost letter D, stop. Sleeve that coin immediately. Do not handle it with bare hands. Get it to PCGs or NGC for certified authentication. Because the 1956 DRPM is real. The money is real. And most of them are still hiding inside ordinary collections. Pulled from circulation decades ago. Forgotten in folder pages. Misidentified by owners who had no idea what they had. The collector community has been quietly working through these for years. But the supply is not exhausted. Not yet. Tonight is your chance. $400 hidden in a Denver mint penny from 1956. But what is coming at number 4 is older, rarer, and carries a much bigger price tag. $85,000. That's what one single 1925 penny sold for at heritage auctions. Not a gold coin. Not a silver dollar. A copper penny from the roaring 20s that most people would toss in a junk jar without a second look. And with the penny ban looming, coins like this are about to become relics of a dead currency. The kind of relics that collectors will fight over. The 1925 wheat penny was struck at 3 mints, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, and the total production was just under 189 million coins. That sounds like a lot until you realize that the survival rate in collectible condition is absolutely brutal. Out of nearly 140 million Philadelphia pennies, only about 5,500 high-grade examples still exist. That's a survival rate of 0.004%. Denver, only 1,750 survivors from 22.6 million struck. And San Francisco is the real shocker. Out of 26.4 million coins, only about 450 have survived in high grade. That's a survival rate of 0.0017%. Almost every single one of them was used up, worn down, and destroyed by a century of circulation. Now here's what makes the 1925 D penny a monster. A single 1925 degraded MS66 red, meaning it still has its original copper color, sold for $85,500. Let that sink in. A penny. $85,500. And the reason is simple. Denver pennies from this era have notoriously weak strikes. Finding one with sharp detail on Lincoln's hair, clean wheat lines on the reverse, and full original red luster is like finding a unicorn in your pocket change. But the errors are where this coin gets truly dangerous for your wallet. The 1925 S double die obverse, cataloged as FS101, is one of the most thrilling finds in the entire Lincoln cent series. During the die-making process, the hub impressed the design onto the working die twice at slightly different angles. The result is a ghostly doubling effect you can see on Lincoln's eye. It looks like he has an extra eyelid. You'll also catch it on the letters of liberty and in God we trust under magnification. Confirmed examples in circulated condition sell for $50 to $200, and an MS-65 brown specimen sold for over $1,100 at auction. But here's the trick most people miss. True double dies show three-dimensional, shelf-like doubling. If the doubling looks flat and mushy, that's worthless machine doubling. You need that sharp raised separation between the impressions. Then there's the 1925 S/S repunched mint mark, cataloged as FS501 and listed in Konicka's top 100 RPMs. Back in the 1920s, mint workers had to punch the S mint mark into each die by hand using a small steel rod. Sometimes the first punch missed or wasn't deep enough, so they'd punch again. That second strike created a visible shadow, two S mint marks layered on top of each other. An MS-64 red example sold for $1,920 at auction. Even circulated examples with clear repunching trade for $100 to $500. Look directly below the date. If you see what looks like extra curves or serifs attached to the S, you might be holding a small fortune. And don't overlook off-center strikes. When the blank planche wasn't properly centered between the dies, you get a coin with part of the design missing and a crescent-shaped blank area. A 1925 penny struck 50% off-center, but still showing the full date can sell for $200 to $500. Even minor off-center errors in the 5 to 10% range are worth $5 to $15, which is still 500 to 1,500 times face value on a 1-cent coin. The 1925 wheat penny is 100 years old this year. It survived the Great Depression, 2 world wars, and a century of being ignored in jars and drawers. And now, with the penny facing elimination, every single one of these becomes a permanent artifact, a piece of American history that will never be minted again. Check your wheat pennies. Check the mint mark. Check for doubling. Because a coin worth a fraction of a cent at face value could be worth your entire car payment. Or more. 9. Period. The year 1957. Denver Mint. And this is where the story of the wheat penny ends forever. The United States government struck wheat pennies for 49 years, from 1909 when Victor David Brenner's iconic design first appeared, through 1958. 2 generations of Americans grew up with those 2 stalks of wheat, framing the words 1 cent on the reverse of every penny in their pocket change. Then in 1958, the government made the decision. The wheat design was retired, replaced by a new reverse depicting the Lincoln Memorial. Beginning in 1959, every Lincoln cent would carry the memorial design, and the wheat penny was dead. The 1957 D was one of the final wheat pennies ever struck. Over 1 billion coins produced at the Denver facility alone, and most of those coins are long gone, spent, lost, damaged. Sitting unrecognized in coffee cans across America right now, being treated like they are worth exactly 1 cent. But here is what most people do not know. The 1957 D wheat penny is the last high mintage wheat penny date, which means it is the date most likely to survive in old family coin collections, and in genuine mint state uncirculated condition, with original red mint luster that was never broken. It is worth considerably more than face value. A 1957 D Lincoln wheat penny graded MS-65 red by PCGs has sold at auction for $75 to $200. In MS-66 red, the price climbs to $300 to $600. And the MS-67 red examples, the finest survivors with completely intact original luster, have sold for $1,500 to $3,000. Look at every 1957 D penny you own tonight. The D mint mark appears directly below and to the right of the date. Strong raking lead light. You are looking for that original red mint luster. Nowhere on Lincoln's cheekbone. Nowhere on the high points of his portrait. The field area of a wheat penny, the flat background surface surrounding Lincoln's portrait, is your first indicator of surface quality. Any blemish in that field, any hairline scratch, drops the grade immediately. And with it, the value. If your 1957 D has bright original red surfaces and zero evidence of wear, do not spend that coin. The coin at number 9 was struck at Denver during a year collected